Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonifati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and Dog TV.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the PAL Podcast. I am Chris Bonifati, joined as always by the virtuous and valiant Kristen Levine. Kristen, how are we doing today?
Oh, virtuous and valiant. I love that. I'm doing good, but I'm jealous. You're wearing a cap. If I'd have known you were going to wear a cap, I would have worn one.
Yeah, I've decided that it's time to make a change in my life. And that change is that I'm going to wear a hat on this podcast. You know, I'm not going to stop drinking. I'm not going to exercise more.
Hey, you got to start small. Start small before you work up to those bigger changes.
Big life change alert. Chris is wearing hats on the podcast now.
I'm wearing sleeveless shirts because it's a full-on spring now, which I am so happy about.
Yeah, well, you get it a little earlier down there in North Carolina than we do. It is not. Yeah. I'm looking outside. It's not quite spring yet, and our spring is gross. Do you guys have a nice spring?
It's kind of nice, yeah. It's like the daffodils pop up out of the ground, and then this beautiful blooms start on the trees. It's not a messy, wet, soggy, muddy spring like you guys have.
Yeah, it's mud. We get mud.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you get to enjoy yourself. I'll still be wearing my snow boots until the mud dries up. And there's still, believe it or not, there's still snow on the ground here.
Good grief.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Yep, Connecticut. But hey, speaking of snow on the ground, let's do a podcast. That's a good transition, right? We're going to be bringing you two guests, two great stories, two awesome products, and at the very end of this episode, we're going to answer two of your burning questions. So sit tight, relax. If you're not watching us on either the Dog TV Fast channel or on YouTube or on the Dog TV app, you're missing out on
Get with the program.
You're missing out on sleeveless sweaters, hats, a frog and toad sweater. Show that real quick.
Oh my gosh.
There we go. So you can't see that content unless you're watching online. Clip it for social, put it up on Instagram, and before we forget, let's get into today's show.
Kristen and Chris present Storytime.
Kristen, why don't you go first? Because my story is, I won't say intense, but
Ooh, oh yeah, I don't want to follow that. I've got a lighthearted story. Are you a baseball fan?
I dabble. I like to go to the games, or if they have the day games on, I'll throw them on while I'm working. But I'm not like a prime time sit at the TV glued to the screen baseball guy.
Well, the MLB season started a couple of weeks ago, and my favorite day to go to the ballpark is when they do the dog day at the ballpark.
Yes.
And a lot of the MLB teams are doing it now and have been for a while. So I just thought I'd give you the dates.
Yes, please.
So depending on where you're listening, if you are a Giants fan, April 30th is your dog day at the park. And they're going to do a pregame track walk with the dogs. That's pretty
fun.
Cool. Yeah, May 26th is for the Marlins. Also doing a track walk before the game. July 8th, the Diamondbacks. September 11th, the Rockies, and then the Brewers game will be on September 24th. Those are the only ones I find so far. They may add more dates, but if you haven't experienced a baseball game with your dog, you definitely need to check it out. Some teams require a special ticket for your dog to enter the stadium. Others don't. So just check your local listings for your team to find out what the rules are.
You know, I've got a funny amendment to that actually. Before the Pets Add Life podcast, when Pets Add Life was just Pets Add Life doing its thing, we sponsored Bark in the Park at City Field. And I got to go.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I got to go, and it was awesome. Of course, like, because we were sponsors, we got one of the luxury boxes. And listen,
sweet.
Like, you may be thinking, like, Chris is rolling in that podcasting dough. He could afford that. No, I can't. No, I can't. I must have eaten like 27 hot dogs. Like,
oh man,
it was ridiculous. It was awesome. But it was so fun because everywhere you went, there were people with their dogs, and they did get to walk around the stadium before the game. So, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Yeah. So definitely take advantage of that, baseball fans.
All right, hit me with your heavy. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
this one is. I don't know if you saw this in the news, but it's just so. It's so 2025 that I have to talk about it on this show.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm going to read the headline word for word.
Okay.
Authorities say thief faked a seizure to steal bulldogs from a pet store.
What?
I'm going to let that sit for a second because I read on, and it's entirely true. They even have security cam footage of this 3-person team that came up with this heist where one person faked a seizure. The second person was the first responder to go up and be like, oh my God, he needs help to create the distraction. And the third person grabbed 2 puppies. An employee noticed, tried to stop them, and he muscled through.
Oh no.
Absolutely wild. This was in Centennial, Colorado, I believe. I think I'm pronouncing that properly. I apologize to all Centennialians if I did not. So this episode's airing a little bit later in our broadcasting schedule, so I'm hoping for a little bit more of a happy ending, but there's a slight happy ending here where one of the dogs was returned by a Good Samaritan.
Oh, good.
Who purchased it through a breeder and then noticed that it matched the missing dog's description and brought it back, understanding the situation. So good work to that person for recognizing it and doing the right thing, returning the dog.
You.
At the time of recording, they have clear descriptions and have not identified the 3 people, but they have clear descriptions and good CCTV footage. I'm hoping that by the time you guys are listening to this, this is a solved mystery with some people doing hard time in the doghouse.
That's right.
But hoping for that second puppy's safe return back to the pet store, and that the 3 thieves are maybe taken care of Home Alone style in some type of mousetrap with Macaulay Culkin.
Throw him in the dungeon.
Yeah, get him in the dungeon. Get him in the dungeon.
Solitary confinement.
That's where society went wrong. We moved from dungeons to jails. Let's get jails underground
Let's
again.
go back to dungeons.
Yeah, let's get jails underground again. Why are we building them above ground? Get the jails back underground.
Seriously, that is disturbing, though, that was that orchestrated of a plan. And yeah, they're posing as breeders and selling them online. That's why it's so important to really know who you're dealing with when you're purchasing.
100%. And if you're purchasing, these were, let me just make sure I get the breed right. I believe they were English bulldogs.
Okay.
I can't find it in the article. I believe they were English bulldogs, but a purebred English bulldog is going to run you between, I would say, $5,000 and $10,000 easily from a reputable breeder. So if you see a posting online that's like, $1,200 for a bulldog puppy,
yeah,
call the cops. Use your better. if the deal is too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
There's a reason.
But yeah, great point. Do your research if you're going to get a dog from a breeder. Definitely get references. In fact, I know some people who've purchased from a breeder, and their breeder gave them references who were okay with you coming to their home and meeting the now grown dog. Right. Which I think is a really good practice.
And you should also be able to visit the breeder's location as well to see what kind of operation they're running. Is it clean? And, so I think that would have tipped you off right away if you'd visited that, operation. Anyway, thank you for that disturbing news story, but it's good that we are aware, that we are vigilant about things like this.
Yep. That's what we do on Pets Ad Life. We're basically Batman. That's what I'm going to do. Robin? Yeah. After this podcast wraps up, I'm going to fly over to Colorado. I'm going to don the cowl and prowl the night looking for these 3 people.
Beyond the Leash, exploring the untold stories of pet passion and professionalism.
Joining us now is Dr. Sarah Wooten. She's a distinguished veterinarian, a certified veterinary journalist, and an international speaker with over 16 years of experience with a small animal practice. 2002 graduate of the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine. She's become a prominent influencer in the veterinary and animal healthcare community. She's kind of a big deal. Dr. Wooten is also passionate about educating pet parents, having authored thousands of articles and produced numerous videos on pet care and the human-animal bond. Her expertise has been featured across various media platforms, including radio, podcast, like this one, television broadcasts, and print magazines. And in addition to her media presence, she co-created the popular card game Vets Against Insanity. I can't wait to hear about that. All right. So welcome, Dr. Wooten. How are you?
I am just wonderful. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, it is a pleasure. And let me just kick it off with this question here. So you've been in the veterinary media for a long time now. How do you approach creating content that bridges the communication gap between vets and pet parents?
Well, I start with empathy and understanding what the point of view of the pet parent is. I understand that, like, I live in this world where I know all of these things, and most of the people that I'm talking to don't know any of it. So I try to put myself in their shoes, and then I explain it the way that I would have wanted to hear it when I didn't know anything. So I use a lot of empathy, I use a lot of perspective, and I use a lot of kindness.
Yeah, those are all really good things to lead with. I mean, there's you have a sinking feeling as a pet parent when you end up in the vet's office, more so than if you yourself were in a doctor's office. So I think those are great things to preach. But what about, I notice you talk a lot about professional development and to your fellow veterinarians as much as you talk about pet parents. So for the younger veterinarians out there just getting started, how can they best both master their profession and also retain some sense of sanity and work-life balance in a very challenging field?
Well, 100% it's about understanding what you need and what you want out of this profession and how it can serve you. We go into this because we're big, empathetic people with big giving hearts, and then we overgive. We become martyrs, and then we become resentful and bitter and angry. And so when I started speaking in the veterinary circuit, I just thought, what are the things that I really needed to hear when I was a younger veterinarian? And let me tell that to the people that I'm teaching it to. And what I notice is veterinary medicine can really beat you up as a person, and it can really destroy your confidence in yourself. And so I do a lot of confidence building. I do a lot of interpersonal skills. I teach people how to communicate in a way that is confident, but also loving. And boundaries are key. And it's so funny to see so many it's not funny, to see so many young veterinarians just sacrificing themselves on the altar of this profession. So I say, hey, get your self-care in order first, because everything's going to flow from that. So I spend a lot of time on those topics.
Yeah. And, I think what would be helpful for our pet parents listening is, can you explain to us, those of us who are not veterinarians, why is it such a difficult career?
Well, it's hard because it's frankly still a cash business. And so people come in and they have these pets that need this care, and you know that you can provide that care, but there's a financial limitation in place. So the pet parent's angry, the veterinarian feels unfulfilled and guilty because they're trying to run this business and they don't have a pro bono leg of their business. And so they carry that with them. And what it's called is called moral distress, when you know the right thing to do in the situation, but you don't do it. And then it happens over and over, and it becomes moral residue, and it just builds up to burnout. And again, veterinarians are so busy learning the business of medicine that they don't have a lot of time to learn self-development, to learn self-actualization, the things that are really important that will carry you through kind of a difficult. Also, there's the euthanasia thing. To be honest, it's really, really hard mentally to kill things. Yeah. It's hard.
Yes.
So those are just a couple of the things that veterinarians walk around with on their heads and their shoulders.
Well, I want to go ahead and pivot a little bit. There's people out there that would refer to me as a gamer, a little bit of a guy who enjoys some games. So I want to talk a bit about Vets Against Insanity. Give us a rundown on the game and maybe what inspired you to produce something like that.
Well, so I've been in the teaching circuit for a long time, and what I noticed was a lot of my audience members would just get bored. And so I started thinking about different ways to help people learn. And what I knew was that if people can laugh and have some gaming, so I originally developed this game as a teaching tool for veterinarians, and then the people that saw me teaching with it, they were like, this is so cool. Let's publish it as an actual game. And I went, okay, that's great. So this game and all of the offshoots of it, this is just the main game. And then there's like a technician one. We have a vet student one. It's designed to help veterinarians connect with each other and laugh about things that we would otherwise cry about. So it's a pretty spicy game, and I love it. And then we also just branched out into the education piece with this one. This is flashcards to learn medical terminology, because for a lot of our veterinary hospitals, they're hiring people that have no exposure to the veterinary terminology. Sure, yeah. So this is just a really fun way for them to learn it.
That's cool. Now, is this a drinking game?
I mean, it could be. Anything's a drinking game if you're brave enough.
And Dr. Wooten, did I see that there's also a conference that was kind of inspired by the game, or did I misunderstand that?
Well, yes, there was. We did it for 3 years, and it was just, it was a way for us to just experiment with different ways to help veterinarians connect with each other and learn in smaller, intimate. And it was a lot of fun, but we're all super busy, so we're taking a break.
Running an event is not easy. You think it's like, oh, we're going to get a few thousand people in a conference center. Yeah, no big deal. It's a huge lift. So I definitely relate to that. And, speaking of being busy, veterinarian, media personality, business owner, game designer, mother, how do you manage all this massive plate of diverse responsibilities? And what's your advice on how to, spin those plates and keep it all balanced?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been working on it for a long time. So time is the magic, right? They say time is the magic of compounding. Time is the magic of building the career of your dreams. So I just said a long time ago, family first, health first, self-care first. And that's what I'm going to focus on first. And then the money's going to come as it does. So I'm really strict with my boundaries. I'm really strict with charging appropriately for my services. I'm really strict with playing at least once every single day, because all creativity comes out of play. So, and I'm really big on time management. I do like these charts and stuff, like where I schedule out my entire week.
I love it.
Right. And I have two phrases. That I follow. One, follow the plan, not your mood. The mood will trip you up every single time, right? And then the second one is image the sequence, not the results. So you know what your goal is, but if you focus on just that, you're never going to get there. You have to focus on the sequence. So that's how I do it.
Oh my gosh.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah, no kidding. So, Dr. Wooten, you are obviously on top of all the veterinary trends and innovations. What are you excited about for the future of veterinary medicine and how it will impact us as pet parents?
Well, I'm really excited about, this is going to sound super nerdy, so just bear with me. I'm really excited about the work into the microbiome, because the microbiome is like the commensal organisms and the symbiotic bacteria and organisms that live on the body and in the body. And so there's a lot of work onto the gut microbiome, especially in dogs and cats, that has been done through Hill's Pet Foods. And they are discovering so many things about how the microbiome influences the rest of your health and your life and your mood. And the same goes for our pets as well. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited to see what comes out in the next 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had a guest that talked about evolution in animals, and speaking on the microbiome of the gut, that dogs have essentially evolved to have a different gut now, which is why some dogs can't eat raw food and some, need to be grain free. Is what I'm saying true, or am I just being a podcaster yelling and whatever into the microphone?
Well, you're not just a podcaster. Let's just stop that right away. It's definitely true, because if you look at the gut microbiome of, say, a wolf, right, and then you look at the gut microbiome of a pug, They're very different.
Inside and out, very different.
Exactly, right? How did we get from here to here? Humans. Right? So I would say what has happened is dogs have adapted to living alongside of humans. We know they've been alongside us for at least 30,000 years, maybe longer. And all that time, they've been living on our leftovers, what was thrown from the fire. And our ancestors did not throw protein. They threw cereal grains to these dogs. And so dogs evolved different ways to cope with living with humans. And so what we're finding now is, yes, a lot of the way we've designed our companion animals, they are not able to process certain products the same way their wild ancestors did. Yeah. And we only have us to blame. So, so there's absolute truth to that, sir.
Oh, that's good to know. You hear that, folks? Chris is not a liar.
No.
Well, we're coming up on time, but I have this kind of a sciencey question for you. I don't know if the planet Earth has a gut microbiome, but recent studies have highlighted that the environmental contamination caused by common pet treatments like flea medications are a concern. So how can vets balance effective pet care with environmental responsibility?
100%. And there's actually a coalition out there that are all about antimicrobial stewardship. So we as the veterinarians have been given the stewardship of these drugs, and we need to use them in such a way that we don't create more problems, right? Veterinarians' first oath that we take is, above all, do no harm. So we have to look and see, how are these drug treatments, antibiotics from parasiticides, all of them, how are they impacting not only the animals that we're treating, but the things we're trying to protect against? Because what we're finding is exactly what you just said. Things like fleas are evolving, and they're becoming resistant to the things that we're putting out there. And the biggest problem is your antibiotic resistances, because when we get that, then we have no ammunition left in our tool belt. So what we have to do as veterinarians is slow our roll, basically, and teach others to do the same thing when it comes to prescribing this stuff. I remember when I was working in a shelter, and all of the cats were coming down with these viral infections, and then they would turn into bacterial infections, and all the people knew to do was give them antibiotics. And I was like, you're destroying their gut microbiome, and you're not addressing the root cause, which is stress. So if we just give all of these cats little boxes to hide in, their immune systems will come back because they're not so stressed. So it's things like that is our responsibility to teach everybody else.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I feel like I could talk to you for 10 hours, but unfortunately we are out of time, Dr. Wooten. So where can our listeners go to learn more about yourself and, get in touch or learn more if they want to?
Absolutely. Well, I do have a website. It's just drsarahwooten.com. I used to have a Facebook page, but that has been stolen. So that is no longer me.
It's not her, folks.
Not me. And then you can always go to vetsagainstinssanity.com to check out our games and our products there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping on today, taking some time out of that busy week-long schedule you got there. We're glad we could be one of your boxes.
Thank you.
Yeah, right?
Thank you so much.
Her energy is infectious.
I know. I'm ready to conquer my day now. Big plan. I'm gonna make a big old calendar, and I'm full of life right now. What an amazing guest, but also super informative. I think everybody, hey, if you're listening and you're taking your pet to the vet soon, just say thank you. Just say thank you. Maybe bring them like some donuts or something. These people are stressed out. That's a guarantee. So give them a hand. Joining us now is Dr. Zazie Todd, an animal behavior expert and award-winning author dedicated to enhancing the well-being of pets through science-based methods. She holds a PhD in psychology from the University of Nottingham and an MFA in creative writing from the University of British Columbia. Dr. Todd is the creator of the acclaimed blog Companion Animal Psychology, where she shares insights on dog and cat behavior, training, and welfare. Her previous works include WAG, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy, and Purr, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy. Her latest book, Bark, The Science of Helping Your Anxious, Fearful, or Reactive Dog, offers practical solutions for addressing canine anxiety and fear-based behaviors. Originally from Leeds, England, Dr. Todd now resides in Maple Ridge, British Columbia with her husband, a dog, and a cat. A full family. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the PAL podcast. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. So let's jump right into it with the latest book, Bark: The Science of Helping Your Anxious, Fearful, or Reactive Dog. What motivated you to write this book, and how does it differ from your previous works?
I wanted to write something that would bring hope to people with fearful dogs, because it's really hard having a fearful and anxious dog, and people often are really struggling, and the dog is really struggling too. So I wanted to write something that was evidence-based and full of practical tips that people could use to improve the situation for them and their dog.
I love that answer. And Dr. Todd, there's a soft spot in my heart for dogs and cats with fear, anxiety, and stress. So I've just added your book to my cart.
Oh, thank you.
Just before I had another question, but first I wanted to ask you, how did you make that transition from a degree in human psychology and creative writing to helping pets?
I was inspired by my own dogs, really, and I tell some of this story in my first book, Wag. So I had two dogs that we adopted, Ghost, who was a really big husky Malamute cross, and then along came Bodger, because Ghost liked company, so we adopted Bodger, who was an Australian Shepherd, who was an absolutely amazing dog, but he had a lot of issues. He was scared of a lot of things. He was reactive on leash. He would spin in circles when we adopted him, and he didn't even want us to touch him. And it took him time to settle in, and really that inspired me to start looking into more about how we can help dogs using psychology, because human psychology, actually, some of it comes from research on animals too. So that's very relevant. And then I was very lucky. My mum gave me a book by John Bradshaw about science, canine science. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. So that started me off learning more about it.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing where you realize, wait, my career can involve pets, and you sort of make that pivot. But I do want to pivot. Speaking of pivot, I do want to pivot and talk about some of that science. We have a lot of listeners who may not even know what an anxious dog looks like, right? So can you talk about some of the signs of anxiety and the importance of recognizing those behaviors early?
Yeah, so there are lots of signs, and probably the one that most people recognize is if the tail goes down and is tucked, sometimes even tucked right between the legs. But there are lots of other signs as well, and that would include having a low body posture, so the dog's whole posture is down. They might tremble and shake. There are some early signs that many people miss, such as if the dog looks away or they lick their lips and you're not about to give them a treat. Those are signs of stress. Or if they yawn sometimes and people think, oh, my dog is tired, but actually know that your dog might actually be feeling stressed. So all of these early signs, if you can recognize those and step in at that point before your dog is having their tail down and running to hide somewhere, then you can step in and you can do something to help your dog.
So if we notice some of these early signs, Dr. Todd, can we as dog parents use positive reinforcement to maybe manage some of these fear-based behaviors in our pets?
Yes, so the most important thing is to help your dog feel safe. So you can devise a plan to work on these fears, but while you're doing that, you want to protect your dog from the thing that they're afraid of. So you want to do everything you can to avoid them coming into contact with it while you're still working on it. And we can use a technique that we call counter conditioning, which is really powerful. It means having absolutely incredible treats, like human food type treats, like pieces of chicken, cheese, or roast beef. And whenever the thing happens that your dog is afraid of, at as low a level as you can get it, you're going to give them some of that chicken or cheese to help them. But the other thing to bear in mind is that if your dog is actually very afraid, if you're struggling or your dog seems to be struggling a lot of the time, see your veterinarian, because these days veterinarians may want to prescribe pharmaceuticals, and they can really help to assist the training as well. And we also know that sometimes pain is involved in behavior issues, so they will check for any medical issues that are going on too.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a lot of people are afraid to just say like, oh, like my dog's just anxious, they don't need the vet, but it could be really helpful. And what about some of those environmental factors? Because sometimes what an owner can do is sort of change the environment that their animal's in. So what's a calm, relaxing, and positive environment for a dog look like?
It would be somewhere that your dog is used to spending time and used to doing pleasant activities and spending time with you, basically. So your home is likely to be a calm environment, but it's important for every dog to have a safe space within the home, namely a space where they can go and they can just chill out and be on their own if they want to. And everybody in the household knows that they will not go to this space. So if you need the dog, you will not go up to this space to get them out of it. You will call the dog to you. And if you have older children in the home, you will teach them that they should not go to the space either. They should call the dog to them. And obviously for smaller children, you need to use barriers to keep them separate. And this gives the dog a space where they can go if they get stressed or there's too much happening, it's too busy, they've got somewhere quiet and peaceful where they can go and relax and just hang out. And that's really good for all dogs, but it's especially important for a fearful or anxious dog.
Sounds like a good idea for people too. I can use a spot like that where nobody's allowed in.
So, Dr. Todd, can you? I assume your new book, Bark, includes some success stories using your methods. Can you point one of them out to us?
It includes a number of stories from people who talk to me about their fearful or anxious dog. And I think for me, the most moving one is actually the story of Dixie. Dixie, as a puppy, was already incredibly, incredibly fearful, too terrified to meet new people, for example. And Bonnie Hartney, who is actually a dog trainer in Surrey, she tells the story of how Dixie came to live in her family and she couldn't even get a leash on her to start with, so she couldn't even take her out for walks. And it was incredibly slow in those early days. It always starts off very slowly, but you have to go at the dog's pace. And if you go at the dog's pace, then over time it speeds up. So now it's many years later. Dixie is a very happy, absolutely lovely dog. If you met her, you would not know that Dixie used to be so terrified. So I think it's really a nice lesson that if you've got the time, you're willing to put in the work, you can make a big, big difference. And that I think it helps people to know that you can make such a big difference to such a terrified dog using just kind and humane methods.
Yeah, I think that's a great message overall, is that, it doesn't take. Obviously, you're very well educated. You have oodles of degrees. You've got more degrees than the weather outside. But it doesn't take a genius to master this kind of stuff. You think it's something that, just an everyday person can learn, right?
Yes, everybody can learn to help their dog. And the more that you learn about dogs and dog behavior, then the better job that you can do of it, basically. I think a lot of people think that they know much about dogs already, but we've actually learned so much, especially in the last 20 years where canine science has really taken off. We've got so many new findings about dogs, and they're absolutely relevant to our everyday lives with dogs. So if you're willing to learn, anybody can learn and make a big, big difference.
Yeah, you partly answered my last question, Dr. Todd. It was about emerging research, and what trends or emerging research are you most excited about?
I'm actually most excited about the research on the human-animal bond and how important that is, because these days we know that if you have a good relationship with your dog, then your presence actually helps your dog to feel better when they're scared or worried, that if they see something that stresses them out, they will actually look to you to see, is this okay or should I be worried? And really that bond that they have with us, it makes a difference to the dog. And we know that it makes a difference to us too, because we experience it. But it's nice to know that it can also make a big difference to the dog, and it's important to the dog. So I think these days scientists are even happy to say that, yes, we know that our dogs love us. And that's a word that scientists never used to dare to say. And they didn't like to talk about it in terms of like human attachment and so on. But now they are talking about the relationship between dogs and their guardian in the same ways as we would talk about attachment between a child and their parents. And I find that really exciting, really interesting, and just adorable as well to look at some of these findings.
Yeah, so kids, if you're listening to this, you could grow up and become a scientist who scientifically proves that dogs love us. And isn't that a wonderful dream to have? Dr. Todd, we're running up on time here. Again, your new book is Bark, The Science of Helping Your Anxious, Fearful, or Reactive Dog. Where can people learn more about your studies or find your books?
So my books are available wherever books are sold, and you can find more about me on my website, which is companionanimalpsychology.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today. This was very informative, and I'm sure everybody out there listening with their little anxious, tiny little dogs is all the better for having heard this conversation.
It's been a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Todd. She was lovely.
She was, and what a soothing voice. Like when you think of like somebody who's like learning how to make dogs less anxious, like the voice matches the job entirely.
Exactly.
Like, very soothing, I felt very calm during that interview.
I did too.
But what a wealth of knowledge. I'm sure there's your anxious little dog going after it. I'm sure you're going to learn.
Doing a show here. Sorry.
This is part of the show. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from reading that book, and maybe I'll pick up a copy too, see what's up.
The product of the week.
All right, folks, it's time for the product of the week. And I got a product here, Kristen, that we saw at Global Pet Expo a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited about it because we know Tiger has issues with drinking water. She only drinks from the sink.
Right.
So this product is currently called the Always Full Pet Water Bowl. And now its gimmick, quote unquote gimmick, is that it's always full, always clean water that never runs out. Now, while I don't particularly get it, I do believe you connect a water line to it is what makes it never run out. What's really cool is and this is going to be kind of funny, especially for dogs that drink from the toilet, it swirls like a toilet.
Oh.
So the water just kind of swirls down and is like constantly flush. It's like the same thing as a toilet, constantly flushing through a filter and then getting a second filtration out the front and running. So A, the water never goes stagnant. B, it's getting filtered twice. And C, a lot of pets, especially cats, prefer running water. They don't want they know, because in nature, still and stagnant means it probably has all sorts of nasty stuff in there, and the running water is fresh. So I thought this was a really, I've obviously looked at a lot of fountains. I've owned 3 different fountains for Tiger to try and get her to drink from something not a sink, and never had any success. I'm going to give this one a whirl. At the time of recording, it's not quite available yet, but if you sign up, and this is when we're talking about this, if you sign up, they're doing a 25% discount if you pre-order one. Cool. So take a look. Link is going to be in the notes. I just thought it was a really cool, just tiny little shift in what we see from a lot of these other filtered water bowls. Just
I've never seen one that has a continuous supply of water.
I've seen those, but they're typically like gravity based. Right? Where like they drink and the water just kind of refills and it runs a water line to the top of it. Like this, I mean, I think it's great. I think if your pet, it drinks from the toilet too. Like if you have a toilet drinker, like maybe this is how you get your wean off it. Yeah, this might be the one.
Get them their own toilet.
Hopefully they don't pee in it.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. All right. So here's my product of the week. I actually just bought this for Tulip. It is, okay, so she loves bully sticks. And this is not the product of the week, but I bought this bully safe. It's from a company called Woof. And a bully safe is a tool that keeps your dog's bully stick or other long-lasting chew secure so that they can't swallow that last little bit of bully stick.
Oh, wow.
And ask any veterinarian about safe chews, and although bully sticks tend to be one of the safest chews on the market, once your dog gets down to that little last inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, depending on the size of your dog, if they swallow that can be problematic. So I saw this when I was at the veterinary show back in January. They've won awards for best enrichment toys. They also make other like dog balls that have lickables in them. But I love this thing because it cranks down tight enough. to hold the bully stick, and I tried it out last night for the first time. Works great, and the shape of it makes it really easy for your dog to hold it with their paw. So they kind of hold it, and then they can chew on it. So I love the Bully Safe, and we'll have the link in the show notes to Woof. But check out their other products too, because they have a lot of cool enrichment toys for dogs.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's so simple. Like you feel like it's one of those things where it's like, damn it, why didn't I invent that? Like I could have invented that.
It's basically a vice for your bully stick.
For your bully stick, yeah. No, that's great, because it is, a lot of people don't realize that those, especially even if they don't swallow it, those last little bits can splinter too. And if they swallow one of those splinters, it could do all sorts of nasty stuff to their throat. So what a great little product there, Kristen.
Yeah.
Tulip, I'm sure, will be thrilled.
Q&As.
All right, folks, it's time for our favorite segment of the show. That's right. We're going to answer 2 of your burning questions, 2 of them from our wonderful audience who just can't get enough of us, and they just need these answers desperately. They're absolutely pining for our attention. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, how do I get me some of that attention? Well, it's quite easy, folks. You're going to head on over to petsadlife.org/podcast. Scroll on down to the bottom of that page, and you will see a little form where you could fill out, your questionnaire, submit your question. Or if you're feeling as brave as Tulip at the end of her bully stick, just staring at that thing thinking, I'm going to swallow that, you can record a voice memo, and we'll play your question live on air on these very airwaves. So without further ado, Kristen, I've got a question for you. Well, I don't, but Mark from Chicago does.
Hey, Mark.
And Mark asks, as a new pet owner, I'm concerned about the risk of my dog contracting diseases in social settings like dog parks. What precautions should I take to protect my pet from common infectious diseases?
Well, that's a really good question, Mark. As a new pet parent, you're very smart to be thinking about your dog's health in social settings. And I can make this one pretty easy for you. Bottom line is vaccinations are going to be your dog's first defense, the first line of defense against contracting any contagious diseases. You want to make sure your dog is fully vaccinated before you do any dog park visits or any place where there are a lot of dogs in the area. The core vaccines that your veterinarian will typically recommend and give to your dog include rabies, distemper, parvovirus, and adenovirus. And I think parvo depends on how old your dog is. That's typically a disease that puppies contract. So I'm not sure if you have a puppy or an older dog, but obviously your vet will recommend which vaccines are most important. And depending on where you live and what your lifestyle is like, they might also recommend Bordetella, leptospirosis vaccine, or canine influenza. I think Tulip got the canine influenza last time we were at the vet. Because of, where we live. Anyway, but you're also supposed to wait for full protection. So I think vets usually say 7 to 14 days after your dog has had their final vaccines before you take them into social settings. But you also, in addition to vaccines, you also want to keep your dog on some type of parasite prevention to prevent fleas, ticks, and heartworm. Again, talk to your vet about their recommendations. There are some alternative ones that are over the counter, but I always go by what my vet says because I just want to play it safe. But parasites are really easily transmitted in social spaces where a lot of dogs are. So make sure, in addition to the vaccines, you get those parasites taken care of. Other than that, just maybe bring your own water bowl if you go to the dog park, because they always have that communal water bowl where all the dogs are slurping out of. So maybe bring your own bowl. I guess it depends on how much a germaphobe you are for your dog. But yeah, other than that, parasites and vaccines, taking care of that, you'll be in good shape.
What a thorough answer. What a thorough answer.
Well, why, thank you. Ironically, this morning, a video on YouTube popped up about vaccines. So it made me wonder if, while I was doing show prep yesterday, if it knew that was a question. I don't know.
They know. The computer always knows.
Okay, I have a question for you, Chris.
Okay.
This is from Jessica in Tampa, where I'm from, Tampa, Florida. She says, to both of us, she says, Kristen and Chris, you've both shared wonderful stories about your pets on the show. Could you tell us about a challenging experience you faced with your own pets and how you handled it?
That's a great question. I think we should both give an answer here, but I'll start. I'll allow you to rest that wonderful voice of yours. So Tiger was difficult. She really was. She came into our lives at the ripe age of, my life at the ripe age of 19. And, my wife had her since the 4th grade. And then when her parents sold her house, the cat moved around all the siblings. And the cat had never had a home where it was an only pet. So Tiger was incredibly defensive and not very social, because some cats, when there's a lot of animals around, are just like, I'm going to find my own space and I'm going to exist there. So I believe it was Thanksgiving a few years ago. The day before Thanksgiving, I was holding Tiger and she bit me so hard that you heard like a crunch as she jammed into like the ligaments of my wrist. And I'm allergic to cats. So my hand turned into a mitten. And I spent the Thanksgiving in urgent care. So the difficult behavior was this defensive, don't touch me. And now Tiger's like a teddy bear. Like I pick her up and I could like roll her around on the ground and stuff. And how did we get there? It was just by building that trust. Like she is old, so she doesn't take good care of her paws, especially when there's litter in there. And it started with me having to grab her by the entire face so she wouldn't bite me and cleaning it out. And she realized, wow, that's great. I feel a lot better now that he's done that. Helping her clean herself with wipes and things like that. And just being firm and protecting myself in certain ways by holding her tightly, not aggressively, but tightly. But making sure that she realized, oh, this is good for me. And then, of course, giving her a little treat afterwards didn't hurt. And now she's my little partner. It was just a lot of hard work. It was many months of building that relationship. And I'd always wear long sleeves around her because she would try and scratch and bite. It was a long journey, but we got there.
You got there. And now she loves you.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, pets, they need time to adjust to change. And change is really difficult for dogs and cats. And my story that I'll share is similar in that we adopted a puppy, a yellow lab puppy. This is many years ago from the SPCA. And this puppy had been a Christmas puppy that someone purchased and gave us a gift for Christmas. And then it got turned in January, and then got readopted and turned in again in like March. So by the time we adopted Buck, he had been in this revolving door at a young age of, I don't know, maybe he was like 4 or 5 months old. He had been we were his third family. And so he had separation anxiety issues from a pretty early age. And, it didn't really show up. I mean, he was always very clingy to me. He was definitely my dog, but his anxiety didn't ratchet up until he was about 4. And that's not uncommon in dogs who have, who have fear, stress, and anxiety. It tends to show itself around 3 or 4. And then it tends to get worse if you don't find ways to manage it or treat it. So it actually got to the point where he was very destructive when my husband and I would leave the house. He would chew the molding on the door frame. He would, destroy things in the house, furniture, what have you. And this is when I learned about veterinary behaviorists. Veterinary behaviorists are board certified in animal behavior, like doggy psychiatrists. And we've had some of them on the show. But the experience we had with Buck really taught me a lot about behavior and the fact that Buck wasn't mad that we were left. He was terrified for his life. He was literally terrified. He was also afraid of thunder and a few other things too. So he was kind of a handful. But we ultimately ended up learning different behavior modifications to use, changing the way he thought of us leaving, giving him special treats, not making a big deal about coming home, not doing the whole, I don't know about you, but when I come home, Tulip comes running. It's like, oh, it's so good to see you. Like we had to cut all of that out and make it a kind of a non-event. And then ultimately, as he got older, because he had such a severe case of it, we did have to medicate him. But it was a quality of life issue, and when he was medicated, we found the right dosage after, a few weeks, and he was able to live some of his best years in his older years. So that was our biggest pet challenge we've had to date. And we've had a lot of pets. So, yeah, if you notice a behavior change in your animal, it's important to talk to your vet about it as early as possible, because that's when it's easiest to modify. Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing, and thanks for the question, Jessica. What a thoughtful question. Mm-hmm. People want to know more about us. It's weird. Very strange.
I know, right?
Very strange. I'm very boring, folks. Like I log off. I log off of this whole podcast. I answer emails, update some spreadsheets. I cook I cook white people dinner, like chicken, broccoli, and rice, and then I watch TV and go to bed. Like there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on here.
I don't think people are buying that. We know your personality. Right, yeah. I'm sure you're very interesting.
It must be the frog and toad sweater. But hey, listen, that's it for this week, folks. That's it. I'm sorry we had to go, but I'm happy we could occupy you for this. I don't know how long this episode's going to be. 45 minutes, an hour.
Probably.
Who knows? Ron with his editing magic, maybe he'll make it fit into 25. You never know. But hey, it was great to have you while we did. We'll be back here next Tuesday. Don't you fret. We're always back, always pumping out new episodes and new content for you guys. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that jazz. And until then, be kind to yourself, be kind to your animals, and we'll see you in a week.
Yeah, and like Chris says, we will be back here next week. We shih tzu not.
We shih tzu not.
Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonifati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and Dog TV.